That was good. Thank you
Hi,
for that.
Shannon.
I
How are
missed joy too. Good morning, guys. We have a lot to talk about and some big news coming out of Miami, so let's get right to it. Multiple reports say the Dolphins believe Ryan Tannehill will need season-ending surgery on his left knee. Tannehill hurt his knee during a non-contact play at practice yesterday. He had a partial tear last year on the same leg. Matt Moore is expected to start for the Dolphins, but ESPN reported that Dolphins executives have discussed bringing Colin Kaepernick in if surgery is needed for Tannehill. There's also reports that our new colleague Jay Cutler could be an option. Shannon, what should the Dolphins do with this situation?
I think the Dolphins should do their due diligence. I think they should scour and see the best available free agent quarterbacks on the market and then make a decision. It's hard for me to believe, Skip, that there's a guy available currently that's better than one Colin Kaepernick. Now, you're going to say, well, but does he want to play? Will he eat meat? What's he going to do with his hair? What about the tattoos? You get all that. But at the end of the day, can the guy play the position that you're asking him to do? Skip, he's done something very few quarterbacks can say they've done. He's beaten Aaron Rodgers in a playoff game at home and in Aaron Rodgers' home.
He did.
That's saying something.
You could say something about Aaron Rodgers, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Why you got to
I'm sorry. Keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Of all the quarterbacks available, he's the only one that can say, I've gone to a Super Bowl. And he was a stone's throw away from getting back to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
In the AFC title game in which they lost to Seattle. Skip, I think this would be a great fit for him. He's kind of like a Tannehill. They're both athletic quarterbacks. Now, obviously, his legs are a lot better than Tannehill's. Tannehill is kind of learning to play the position because he was a receiver in college, moved to the quarterback position, and so he's still developing and trying to understand the position. Colin Kaepernick has basically been a quarterback basically all his life.
Yep.
And but there are some forces that's non-football related that might work against Cap in this situation, Skip. You remember when Kenny Stills and some of the Dolphins kneeled in protest in support of Cap, the police department says we might have to think twice about offering security at the stadium. And then Colin wore that Fidel Castro T-shirt. I think it was a split T-shirt of Malcolm X and Fidel Castro.
They were together in a picture, yeah.
We know in Miami it's a heavy Cuban population. And we know what the Cuban population, those people that had to leave that island, we know what they think of Fidel Castro. So there are some things that's working against him in this situation that's not football related that also will weigh in on this decision. But at the end of the day, I believe Colin Kaepernick is the best available free agent quarterback for the Miami Dolphins to sign.
I will give you this. Colin Kaepernick, to me, clearly is better than Ryan Tannehill. I wasn't a fan before Ryan got drafted, never quite been won over by him as a pro quarterback. I give them this. They did make the playoffs last year, but as you remember, Matt Moore played the playoff game. I like Matt Moore, and I can show you numbers that say Matt Moore's performed better than Ryan Tannehill has. Mm-hmm. So they do have that option. Matt Moore's problem is he goes a little kamikaze and he takes a lot of hits he doesn't need to take, and I'm not sure he would last long as the starting quarterback, but you do have a pretty good second option already. Mm-hmm. I just think that on short notice, if Jay Cutler, our colleague, really wants to do this, and they could come up with the signing bonus money that Jay and Buskook, his agent, would command because he's going to want to be compensated, quote unquote, like a starter, that he would be the quicker, smoother, better fit for Adam Gase. As you remember, 2 years ago, 2015, Adam Gase was the coordinator in Chicago. And Jay Cutler, I'm not saying he had his best year, but he had his most efficient year, 21 touchdowns to only a career low 11 interceptions, which for Jay was pretty sensational. Dare I say, efficient. He completed 64% of his passes, which is second best in his career. And he had a QBR of 65, which was 12th best in the league. Not his best of his career. He had 3 better than that. But you know, and I know, Jay Cutler can still throw the football. Mm-hmm. Do I think he's a little better thrower of the football than Colin Kaepernick? I do. Do I like Colin's intangibles way more than I like Jay's? I do. But because of the fit with Adam Gase, I could see where they would go in that direction because it's smoother, because he knows all the verbiage. He would step right into the huddle and be able to command the huddle because he gets it. He gets Adam Gase. And I don't know how Adam Gase put Jay Cutler in a comfort zone for the first time of any coach, including Mike Shanahan, who had a little bit of a rocky time with Jay early in Denver. But he did. So I think that fit, just emotions to emotions, would be pretty good, because I don't know how Colin would fit with Adam Gase. Now, back to the larger issues at work here. Steve Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, is about as open-minded an owner as there is in pro football.
Yep.
And he was one who stepped up and supported his Dolphin players for also kneeling during the national anthem.
Right.
So you got that going for, that's like, this could be position A for Colin, where we thought the Seahawks locker room was great. We thought the Ravens locker room would have been great for him. But this owner might be the best fit for Colin.
Right.
If not for what you brought up, which was the T-shirt that Colin wore the first night of his anthem protest last preseason to the post-game media session. Right. And again, 1960 picture of Fidel Castro with Malcolm X. And the caption was, "Like minds think alike." Yeah. So we fast forward then to November 27th, which was the game that Colin and company San Francisco played at Miami.
Correct.
So he had to do a media conference call with the Dolphins reporters a couple days before that. And Armando Salguero of the Miami Herald asked him some tough but fair and good questions. And I thought, reading the transcript, that Colin gave some insensitive and uninformed answers that clearly did not play well with Armando. And I'm pretty sure they didn't play well with that sizable Cuban population in Miami.
Very correct.
Okay, and just a couple of quicks without going into the gory details. Armando asked him, how can you protest oppression, then ignorantly don a T-shirt featuring an oppressor? Mm-hmm. And obviously Armando was a Cuban exile. He and his mother and father tried to get out. They thought they had their visas to go. And some thug soldier at the airport said, no, only 2 of you get to go. So the father had to choose to stay. Mm-hmm. And it tore Armando's heart out, obviously, and the mom. So they got out of the Castro tyranny, the murderous dictatorship that was Fidel Castro. So at the end of this, Armando concludes, I was stunned how someone so outspoken about his beliefs could be so ignorant to facts not up for debate. All Colin Kaepernick did was expose himself as a fraud. So wear your Malcolm X shirt that features Fidel Castro, Colin Kaepernick. Wear it around town where hundreds of thousands of Cuban exiles live with memories similar to mine. Show everyone what an unrepentant hypocrite you are. Oof. Yeah. Again, Armando's coming from a place that's hard for even us to feel.
Right.
And so are a lot of those Cuban exiles in Miami. That issue, you could argue, runs even deeper than the racial issues that face America that Colin took a stand for, which I applauded. So is it too much? Is it a sort of quote unquote deal killer for Steve Ross to even consider bringing Colin into that environment? It's a tough call. He is the best I get it, best available free agent. But now, and again, I don't know if Jay Cutler, I haven't spoken to him, obviously. Does he really, this is a good gig he's got here. Just like Tony Romo has a great gig, Jay's got a really good one.
Correct.
Does he want to, he's only 34, does he want to jump into this just because he's familiar with his former coordinator who's now the head coach? I don't know, but that would be a good fit. But again, I'm with you on this. If you could just in a vacuum take away all these emotions from this, if I could replace Ryan Tannehill with Colin Kaepernick, I would like the Dolphins' chances better this year. I will give you that much.
Skip, for me, if I could have advised Colin on anything, I would have made sure that you don't give people any reason to doubt your cause and your sincerity.
I agree, because he kept saying, I'm wearing a Malcolm X T-shirt.
Right.
That was the message he wanted to send.
Yeah, you can say that, but when there's another picture on there, they also see that also. And so, Skip, a lot of times when people do not like the message, they'll do everything they possibly can to destroy the messenger. So you want to make sure you give people no reason to ever doubt your cause and why you're doing this. With that being said, hopefully, if this were to happen, he could sit down with Mr. Salguero again and explain to him and have a better understanding, because, you know, I have a minor degree in history, so I understand the oppression of all the things that took place in Cuba. And a lot of times people will take some of the good that he may have done, but the bad that he did to his people far outweigh that. So if he passed out 50,000 loaves of bread, the many people that you killed in Cuba, and they're fleeing, they were fleeing for a reason. People just don't mass exodus a country for no reason. You don't see mass exodus out of the United States, as bad as it is. And at times it can be horrible. But when you look at these countries, you look at some countries in Africa, or you look at Iraq, you look at Syria, you look at Cuba back in the 60s and the 70s when people, 80s were trying to leave. There was a reason for that. And so I wish I could have talked to Colin before he wore that T-shirt, because I would have advised him not to.
Remember, that was the first night,
right?
So he hadn't given this whole thing all that much thought yet.
I don't think because he had done it before, and I don't think he thought they were going to catch it this time, because I had done it before. You didn't say anything, so I'm just going to wear my T-shirt, come in, come out. But that doesn't change the fact, because here's the thing, Skip. Even if you're in the dark, you make sure you're on the up and up, because somebody at any given time can shine light on your situation. So because then they say, well, see, I told you, he's one way in the light, he's something totally different in the dark. And you never want to give the appearance that you're not on the up and up. But Skip, it's hard for me to believe that Colin Kaepernick isn't the best available quarterback for this situation. And let's just take it from a football perspective. Colin Kaepernick started 11 games. He threw 4 interceptions. Jay Cutler started 5 games. He threw 5 interceptions. Colin Kaepernick has a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. Jay Cutler is not even close to that. Jay Cutler has won 1 playoff game.
It's not that bad. Jay Cutler's 208 to 146 touchdowns to interceptions. So he was high touchdown pass. I think it ranks 35th already all time. But Colin's shocking. Like, he's 72 to 30, which is it's really good in last year's 16.
And you say, Jay can throw it, but he can throw it to your team and the other team also. So you don't know which team is going to get the ball. You know one of them's going to get it. And there's a good chance that the other team's going to get it and be coming back the other way. But this is think about this. Now, would I be surprised if the Dolphins made a trade and try to get someone else back up that's in the 32 teams that's playing in the NFL? I would not be surprised, Skip. Nothing's going to surprise.
You do have the option of a Brock Osweiler, who Adam Gase coached back in that pretty good year in Denver. That Osweiler, it was a very good year, actually, right?
Yeah. Okay. But the thing is, though, Skip, is that when you look at it, you say, okay, Colin Kaepernick, Brock Osweiler. Brock Osweiler had an opportunity. They make it seem like Brock in Houston didn't have weapons. You look at what he had. And you couldn't play any better than that. You got DeAndre Hopkins. Totally. You had Fuller and Braxton Miller. You had tight ends that could catch the football. You could run the ball with Blue and Miller. And a Skip. Now, the one thing we know about the Houston Texans, they may not have had the best quarterbacks, but they could always play defense. And even when J.J. Watt went out, they could still play defense. So all you had to do was play to your defense. So I believe Colin Kaepernick is the best available quarterback. Whether or not it works out, maybe the auxiliary forces that's pulling outside of football is too great for that community. But from a purely football perspective, it's hard for me to believe that anybody that's available is better than Colin Kaepernick.
So you have never been a big Jay Cutler fan. Would it offend you if they went with Jay Cutler?
I'm offended by the NFL and all the bull job they've been doing for the last 6 months. So would I be surprised? Absolutely not. Would I be surprised if the Miami Dolphins traded for someone's backup? I would not be surprised. Nothing surprises me anymore about the NFL, Skip. You know that. They hide behind this. We do things, and the commissioner, and we're going to talk about this a little later. He was in Denver yesterday. Oh, no, teams, he's not being blackballed. Teams decide on who they're going to take and draft and all this stuff purely on a performance-based deal. But now we got teams asking sponsors and fans, what do they think? When they've never done this before. Interesting.
So, just quickly, what did you think of Malcolm Jenkins saying it's cowardly for owners not to sign Colin Kaepernick?
He said it 5 months after I said it. That's exactly what I said, Skip, because you know why? Everybody says, why don't Colin just tell us what he wants to do? Why don't Colin come out and say he wants to play? Okay, owners, why don't you tell us why you don't want Colin Kaepernick? Okay, you want him to tell you what, even though Dick Cass says Colin Kaepernick says he wants to play. John Lynch, the new general manager of the San Francisco 49ers, although he has said some things that was not unbecoming of Colin, he said, talking to Colin wants to play. Pete Carroll said he wants to play. If he didn't want to play football, why would the Seattle even bring him in? If he didn't want to play, Skip, isn't that a waste of your time and more importantly, a waste of his? If you don't think he wants to play, of course it is. But they're gonna hide behind. He need to eat meat. He need to do something with get a haircut.
You know what? To me, the bottom line is the bottom line, as in follow the money.
Yeah,
these are big businessmen. And I think it's more about greed than cowardice in this respect, because these guys aren't in it to be social crusaders or reformers, obviously. And if they think that Colin Kaepernick's presence in their franchise, especially as a franchise quarterback, would threaten the revenue stream, would turn away, alienate potential customers and consumers, then they're out. Because it's about
hold up, Skip. No. I thought it was about wins first. That's what they tell us. No, Skip. No,
but what have we concluded? There are only about 5 or 6 owners who really, really care about winning in the NFL. Most of them are in it for the money.
Of course.
Yeah.
What's their motto?
If they win, it's nice. But
if it makes dollars, it makes sense.
Okay. Well, that's what's happening.
So we know what's going on here. We know what's at play. But the NFL is cowardice. They tell Cap to tell us he wants to play. Tell us why you don't want Cap on your team. Because we know it's not because of ability. The guy's 29. A guy that's 29 years of age, last took a snap the 7th or 8th of January. He needs to tell you 6 months later he still wants to play football. He's 29, not 39. We know what it's about.
Yeah, it's just too bad, bottom line on this, that a job comes open in the one city in which there's another issue facing Colin.
Think about it. Let me ask you a question, Skip. In the real world, where can a guy that's equally as qualified not get the job that a convicted fella can get? Tell me the job that in the real world, IBM, Apple, anywhere, any clerk anywhere, where can a guy that's never been arrested, that has no check marks, no stain on his resume, lose out to a job for a guy that was convicted of dogfighting, a guy that's abused, a guy that's killed someone? Where does that happen at?
I know, but most fans aren't turned off by law breaking because they consider it a gladiator sport. But for some fans, we talked about it yesterday, if you disrespect the flag, you've crossed a line that they don't want anyone to cross. They're football heroes. That's what it is.
Kaepernick could acknowledge that the T-shirt was maybe not his best move. And I think, if anything, people like honesty.
I would agree. And I agree with you meeting with Armando Salguero. Yeah, right.
Well,
People like honesty as long as it's not about them, a family member, or their team. Now, if you're going to tell me the truth about me, you need to be quiet. If you're going to tell the truth about my family member, you need to be quiet.
Yep.
And you better not tell the truth about my team. Because, that's my team, man. Hey, I bleed blue and silver. I bleed this. Will you please stop?
You do bleed blue and silver.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. It's closet, but you bleed it.
That's okay. Me and Zeke going on vacation in September.
Right. We'll talk about that.